Why is her arm broken, but she's still working? The disguised hotel owner froze when he saw the black housekeeper struggling to change the sheets, her bandaged hand trembling with pain. But her injury wasn't the only thing that shocked him. It was her whispered words afterward, words that revealed a dark secret so profound it would change everything he had ever known about his hotel. Stay with me until the end of this story, because it will leave you stunned. The Grand Metropolitan Hotel stood as a beacon in the heart of downtown Atlanta. Its marble lobby glistened under crystal chandeliers. Guests in designer clothes checked in, while others sat on leather armchairs, sipping expensive champagne. Everything appeared perfect, but perfection is sometimes just an expensive mask, hiding ugly truths, and Marcus Thompson was about to discover that. Marcus had built his hotel empire with his own hands. From a rundown motel 30 years ago, he had grown it into 12 luxury resorts across the southeast, with the Grand Metropolitan as the crown jewel. The hotel had helped him become one of the most successful black businessmen in Atlanta. But success came with a price. Now, Marcus spent most of his time in boardrooms instead of walking the hotel floors. This morning, he felt something was off. Maybe it was the way the front desk manager stuttered when Marcus asked about the occupancy rate, or the anxiety in the assistant manager's voice when discussing the work schedule. Whatever it was, Marcus decided to do something he hadn't done in years. He would go undercover to find out for himself. Dressed in old, frayed jeans, a faded flannel shirt, and worn-out work boots, Marcus looked no different from a regular maintenance worker, a complete contrast to the polished businessman in the executive office photos. He let his beard grow out, replaced his expensive watch with a cheap digital one, and even changed his gait. To anyone who saw him, he was just a new maintenance worker hired for the day. The service elevator took him to the 15th floor, where the staff was cleaning rooms. Everything was efficient and quiet. The hallway was neat and clean, with polished brass doors shimmering in the soft light. When Marcus entered the housekeeping area, he noticed the atmosphere was different. The staff moved silently, making almost no sound, with their heads down and only whispering to each other. A heavy tension hung in the air, completely unlike a place built to provide comfort for guests. Just then, he saw a female employee struggling to push a cart loaded with linens, trying to maneuver it around a corner. Her left hand was wrapped in a thick white bandage. Every movement was difficult and seemed to cause pain, but she worked with a persistence that both impressed and worried Marcus. He watched from a distance as she went to room 1507. The woman fumbled with the keycard, almost dropping it twice before finally getting the door open. Inside, she began carefully stripping and changing the king-sized bedsheets. The job that should have been routine became a carefully choreographed dance to avoid putting pressure on her injured hand. Marcus moved closer, pretending to check an electrical outlet, but keeping his eyes on her. She was probably in her early 40s, with salt and pepper hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes that held a lot of worry. Her name tag read Patricia Williams. As she worked, Patricia quietly hummed a gospel hymn, as if seeking strength. But Marcus noticed her wince whenever she had to grip something with both hands. When she went into the bathroom to clean, Marcus seized the opportunity. He stepped closer to Patricia's cart and called out softly, "Excuse me." Patricia spun around, startled. A flicker of fear crossed her face before it was replaced by a practiced smile, the kind of smile that a person learns to wear to hide pain. "Yes, sir. Can I help you with something?" "I saw your hand," Marcus said softly. "It looks painful. What happened to it?" His question took her by surprise. She glanced nervously down the hallway, then back at him. Marcus thought she wouldn't answer, but then she whispered something that sent a chill down his spine. "What happened doesn't matter. What matters is that I have 3 children, and rent is due tomorrow." Then she added something else, so quietly Marcus almost missed it. "Mr. Stevens said accidents happen to clumsy people, and I should be grateful to still have a job." Marcus felt his blood pressure rise. Stevens. David Stevens was the hotel's general manager, a man he had personally hired 2 years ago for his impressive resume, a man who was supposed to be running the Grand Metropolitan with the values he had built his entire empire on. "Mr. Stevens told you that?" Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Patricia's eyes widened, as if she had said too much. She shook her head quickly. "I shouldn't have said anything. Please don't tell him I complained. I really need this job." "You're not complaining," Marcus reassured her. "You're just telling a story. But tell me, how did you hurt your hand?" Patricia looked nervously down the hallway again and lowered her voice. 3 days ago, there was an accident in the laundry room. The door of the industrial washing machine slammed on my hand while I was loading in the sheets. 2 broken fingers and a badly sprained wrist. Marcus frowned. Such a serious workplace accident should have been reported, and the person injured should have received medical insurance and sick leave. "Did you see a doctor? Did you file an accident report?" Patricia gave a bitter laugh. "Mr. Stevens said it wasn't an accident. He said I was careless, not paying attention. He also said that if I wanted to keep my job, I had to bandage it up and get back to work. If I made a fuss, there were plenty of other people who wanted my position." Those words hit Marcus like a physical blow. This wasn't just carelessness, it was intentional cruelty, an act happening right in his own hotel, under his name, to his own employees. "How long have you been working here?" he asked. 8 years, Patricia replied, with a slight hint of pride in her voice. "I started working here right after my husband passed away. This place used to be very good to me. I always worked hard and stayed out of trouble. But recently," she trailed off, shaking her head. "Recently what?" Patricia looked around again, making sure they were alone. "Everything has changed since Mr. Stevens took over. The way he talks to us, especially us black women, makes us feel so small, as if we have no value at all. And if we speak up about anything, our hours get cut immediately, or we get written up for things that were never a problem before." Marcus felt a surge of anger welling up inside him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. This wasn't just a story about one injured employee. This was about a systemic abuse happening right under his nose, in the very business he had built as a symbol of success and opportunity for black people. "Patricia," he said carefully, "if you could change anything here, what would you want to see happen?" She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand why this maintenance man cared so much about her problems. "I just want to be treated with respect," she said, "to work without being afraid of getting fired for speaking up, to know that if I get hurt, someone will take care of me instead of blaming me. I want my kids to see their mom working somewhere I can be proud of, not somewhere I have to hide my bruises and pretend everything is okay." Her voice grew stronger, the fear giving way to something more fierce. Marcus slowly nodded, taking in every word. "Patricia, what would you say if I told you that everything here is about to change?" She offered a sad smile. "I'd say you seem like a good man with good intentions, but good intentions don't pay the bills or keep the lights on, and they certainly don't protect people like me from people like Stevens." As Patricia went back to work, Marcus walked back into the hallway, his mind reeling. He had come here hoping to find minor operational issues that could be solved with a little extra training. Instead, he had uncovered something far more serious, a cancer eating away at the heart of his most prized asset. But Patricia Williams had no idea that the maintenance man she had just confided in was about to turn her world upside down, and David Stevens was about to learn that some secrets are too big to keep. Marcus spent the rest of the day moving throughout the hotel, but with an entirely different perspective. Every interaction between management and housekeeping staff now took on new meaning. Every nervous glance, every rushed conversation that stopped when supervisors passed by, every forced smile that couldn't hide the exhaustion in their eyes. He went into the supply rooms and maintenance areas, the places where employees like Patricia Williams felt safe to speak the truth. What he discovered made him feel sick. In the laundry room, he overheard 2 housekeepers whispering about having their breaks cut. "Can't even use the bathroom without Stevens clocking you," one said. Yesterday, he wrote up Maria for being in the supply closet for too long. She was having chest pains, but he said she was faking it. Near the service elevator, Marcus watched Stevens stride past a housekeeper, struggling with a broken wheel on her cart. The woman called out for help, but Stevens just kept walking, mumbling loud enough for everyone to hear, "Just lazy," making excuses. But what Marcus witnessed in the employee break room was what finally made him snap. He was crouched behind a vending machine, pretending to check electrical connections, when Stevens walked in with his assistant manager, Craig Morrison. 3 female housekeepers were eating lunch at a small table, including Patricia, her bandaged hand resting carefully on the table as she used her other hand to eat a sandwich. "Well, Patricia," Stevens said with a voice full of fake concern, "how's the hand? Still milking that little accident for sympathy?" The room went silent. Patricia looked up, her jaw clenched. "It's healing, sir. The doctor said another week or 2. "What doctor?" Stevens sneered. "I don't recall approving any sick leave or workers' comp claim." "I went on my own, sir. Paid for it myself," Patricia responded. Morrison chuckled. "Maybe next time you should pay closer attention to what you're doing. Accidents don't happen to careful people." Marcus saw Patricia's face flush with shame and anger. Her colleagues just stared. Stevens continued, "Why are you looking down, afraid to look me in the eye? Since you're so preoccupied with your little injury, maybe you should take some unpaid leave until your hand heals completely. We can't have clumsy employees making the hotel look bad." "Sir, please," Patricia said, her voice almost trembling. "I need these hours. My children." "Your children are not my problem," Stevens cut her off. "Your performance is. And lately, your performance has been questionable." He pulled out his phone and pretended to type. "There, you're off the schedule for the rest of the week. Maybe that will teach you to be more careful." Patricia's face went pale. Marcus could see her doing the math in her head, figuring out how to pay rent, buy groceries, and keep the lights on. Her lips were pressed tightly together, not saying anything else that could make things worse. After Stevens and Morrison left, the break room was silent for a long moment. Finally, an older colleague of Patricia's named Betty reached across the table and squeezed her uninjured hand. "That man is not right, child," Betty whispered. "The way he treats us, especially you young ladies, it's just not right." "Betty, don't say that," Patricia warned. "You know he has cameras everywhere. He hears everything." "I don't care," Betty said, though she lowered her voice. "My nephew's a lawyer. He tells me about these discrimination lawsuits. What Stevens is doing is illegal. You could sue him." Patricia shook her head. "Where would I get the money to sue a fancy hotel with fancy lawyers? They would ruin me, Betty. Make sure I never get a decent job again." "But you have witnesses," Maria, another housekeeper, added. "All of us saw how he treats you differently, the way he talks to you, writing you up for things he lets others get away with. You think I haven't thought about that?" Patricia's voice cracked with frustration. "You think I want to put up with this? But I have 3 kids at home. The oldest needs a co-signer for a college loan. The middle one needs glasses to see the board at school. And the youngest has asthma and needs medicine every month." She stood up, cradling her injured hand. "I can't risk losing this job. Not for pride, not for justice, not for anything. Sometimes you just have to swallow your pride and keep going." Patricia's last words, full of resignation and despair, echoed in Marcus's mind. He saw not just a single employee struggling, but an entire system of abuse, a toxic environment fostered by a manager who had forgotten the human cost of his power. This was no longer just a business problem. It was a moral one. And Marcus Thompson, the man who built this empire, was about to tear it down and rebuild it with the same values it was founded on. "But you have witnesses," Maria, another housekeeper, added. "All of us saw how he treats you differently, the way he talks to you, writing you up for things he lets others get away with." "Do you think I haven't thought about that?" Patricia's voice cracked with frustration. "Do you think I want to put up with this? But I have 3 kids at home. The oldest needs a co-signer for a college loan. The middle one needs glasses to see the board at school, and the youngest has asthma and needs medicine every month. She stood up, cradling her injured hand. I can't risk losing this job. Not for pride, not for justice, not for anything. Sometimes you just have to swallow your pride and keep going. That evening, Marcus sat in his penthouse office, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. His hotel sparkled below, a monument to all he had accomplished. But now, it felt tainted, corrupted by the poison Stevens had spread through its hallways. He pulled out his phone and called his lawyer, James Richmond, who had been with him for every major business decision for the past 15 years. James, it's late. What's wrong? Is everything okay? No, nothing's okay, Marcus replied. I need you to pull David Stevens's personnel file, everything. Do a background check. Check his references, his previous work history, and I want you to look at every single human resources complaint from the hotel for the past 2 years. Okay, James said slowly. Can I ask what prompted this? Marcus told him everything. Patricia's broken hand, the lack of an incident report, and the systemic harassment he had witnessed. When he finished, James was silent for a long moment. Marcus, if what you're saying is true, you're looking at some serious legal issues. That's discrimination, workplace harassment, and failure to provide a safe work environment. Stevens isn't just being cruel, he's opening you up to massive lawsuits. I don't care about the lawsuits right now, Marcus said. I care about Patricia Williams and every other employee being treated like trash in my own hotel. I get it, but we need to be smart about this, James said. If you fire Stevens immediately without evidence, he can sue for wrongful termination. And if Patricia and others decide to sue, firing him might not be enough to protect the company. Marcus rubbed his temples. So what do you suggest? Give me 48 hours. Let me dig into Stevens' background, review the HR files, even hire a private investigator to document what's happening. We need to build an airtight case. James, Marcus interrupted, while you build your case, Patricia Williams doesn't know if she's going to be able to pay her rent. She's working with broken fingers because she's scared to speak up. I can't wait 48 hours. Then don't, James said, but work strategically. You're the owner. You have every right to conduct impromptu audits, review employee records, interview staff. Just make sure everything you do is by the book. After hanging up, Marcus sat in the dark for hours, reflecting on Patricia's words. Sometimes you just have to swallow your pride and keep going. He wondered how many of his employees felt the same way. How many were suffering in silence because they believed no one would listen or care. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the hotel before dawn. He had traded his maintenance clothes for a sleek business suit, but he kept his beard slightly longer than usual. To most employees who didn't know him, he looked like a regular executive. He went straight to the HR office, where the files were kept in locked cabinets. Using his master key, he began pulling records. What he found made his blood boil. Patricia Williams's file was thick with disciplinary reports, all of them from after Stevens took over, written up for taking too long to clean a room, for being rude to a guest, and for missing work when her son had an asthma attack that sent him to the hospital. Each violation had Stevens and Morrison's signatures, but Marcus noticed something striking. The earlier reports, from before Stevens arrived, painted a completely different picture. 8 years of stellar service, positive guest reviews, and perfect attendance except for documented emergencies. Every file told a similar story. Hardworking employees with perfect records suddenly had disciplinary issues after Stevens took charge. And Marcus noticed a disturbing pattern. The employees being targeted were predominantly black women. Meanwhile, younger, white employees who were clearly favored by Stevens had no disciplinary reports at all, even though Marcus found buried customer complaints about them in feedback forms. Marcus was organizing the files when he heard familiar voices in the hallway. Stevens and Morrison had arrived early to start their shifts. He quickly closed the cabinet and slipped into a nearby utility closet, leaving the door ajar just enough to hear their conversation. "Did you see the look on Patricia's face yesterday?" Morrison said with a chuckle. "I thought she was going to cry right there in the break room." "Good," Stevens replied. "Maybe now she'll know her place. These people think they can do whatever they want and demand anything. Sometimes you have to remind them who's in charge. Do you think she'll quit? Probably not. She needs the job too badly. A few more weeks of cut hours, maybe another accident or two, and she'll be gone for good. Then we won't have to go through the hassle of firing her." Marcus gripped the doorknob until his knuckles turned white. Another accident or two. Stevens wasn't just negligent, he was actively planning to harm his employees. "What about that other one, Betty?" Morrison asked. "She keeps talking to the young girls about their rights. She's due to retire soon anyway. I'm sure we can find a reason to encourage her to retire early. Maybe a few performance issues, a missed shift due to her age. Management loves it when we trim the older, more expensive employees." They walked past the closet, their voices fading. But Marcus had heard enough. This wasn't just workplace harassment anymore. It was a calculated campaign to force employees out based on their race and age, using intimidation and manufactured accidents as weapons. He waited until they were gone and pulled out his phone, but instead of calling his lawyer, he called the person whose opinion mattered most to him, his mother, Dorothy Thompson. At 82, Dorothy had cleaned offices and hotel rooms for 40 years before Marcus was successful enough to take care of her. She had raised him alone after his father died, working multiple jobs to put food on the table and keep a dream alive in her son's heart. "Marcus, my boy, you never call this early. Is everything all right?" "Mom, I need to ask you something. If you were still working, still cleaning hotels, and someone was treating you the way Patricia Williams is being treated, what would you want the owner to do?" Dorothy was silent for a moment. "Patricia Williams, son, what's going on?" Marcus told her everything, his voice cracking as he described Patricia's broken hand, her fear, her acceptance of the abuse, because she couldn't risk losing her job. When he finished, Dorothy let out a long, heavy sigh. "Marcus, do you know what your grandmother used to tell me? She'd say, 'Dorothy, when you see someone being put down and you have the power to help, you don't have a choice. You have a responsibility.' But Mom, what if I act too fast, if I don't handle this the right way?" "Son," Dorothy interrupted, "that woman is working with broken fingers because she's scared. Her children are watching her come home hurt and defeated every day. You think she has time for you to handle this carefully?" Marcus closed his eyes. "What should I do?" "You do the right thing, and you do it right now. That Patricia Williams, she deserves better. They all do. You built that hotel to be something to be proud of, something that lifts people up. Don't let one short-sighted man turn it into a place that breaks them." As Marcus hung up the phone, he felt something settle in his chest, a certainty that cut through all his doubt and strategic considerations. His mother was right. Patricia Williams and every other employee deserved better, and they deserved it today, not in 48 hours of legal wrangling. He straightened his tie, looked at himself in the utility closet mirror, and stepped back into the hallway. It was time for David Stevens to meet the real owner of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel. Marcus walked purposefully down the hall, his footsteps echoing on the polished marble floors. The weight of what he had uncovered was heavy on his shoulders, but his mother's words rang in his mind. Patricia Williams deserved justice, and she deserved it now. He found Stevens in his office, feet up on his desk, laughing on the phone with someone. Through the glass wall, Marcus could see Morrison sitting in a chair. Both were completely at ease, unaware that their world was about to come crashing down. Marcus knocked once and walked in without waiting for a response. Stevens looked up, his smile fading as he saw the grim look on Marcus's face. "Can I help you?" "I don't believe we have a meeting scheduled." "We do now," Marcus replied, closing the door behind him. "I'm Marcus Thompson. I own this hotel." The color drained from Stevens's face, and Morrison's mouth fell open, his body stiffening in the chair. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. Mr. Thompson, Stevens stammered, quickly getting to his feet. I didn't expect you. If you had called ahead. I don't need to call ahead to visit my own property, Marcus cut him off. Especially when I'm investigating reports of employee abuse and workplace discrimination. Stevens gave a forced laugh. Employee abuse. Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We run a tight ship, but everything is by the book. Marcus pulled out his phone and opened a recording app. Is that so? Then you won't mind explaining why Patricia Williams is working with 2 broken fingers and a sprained wrist, with no incident report or workers' comp claim filed. The silence was deafening until Morrison spoke up. Sir, that employee was injured due to her own carelessness. She didn't follow safety protocols. Really? Marcus's voice dropped to a dangerous level. And what are those protocols? The ones that require an employee to work with a serious injury or face losing their job? Stevens tried to regain his composure. Mr. Thompson, I understand your concern, but Patricia Williams has been a problematic employee for some time. Her injury was unfortunate, but— Stop talking, Marcus commanded. Both men fell silent. Yesterday, I overheard you tell that woman that her children were not your problem. I witnessed you cut her hours as a punishment for being hurt. I listened as you discussed how to stage more accidents to force her out. Morrison's face turned ashen, and Stevens's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. I've reviewed the HR files. Hardworking employees with years of excellent service records are suddenly racking up violations after you arrived. A clear pattern of targeting black employees, older workers, anyone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of acceptable. He stepped closer to Stevens's desk. But what sickens me the most is how you have terrorized people who depend on this job to feed their families. Patricia Williams has been here for 8 years. 8 years of dedication, and you made her feel like she had to choose between her dignity and her children's well-being. Finally, Stevens found his voice. Sir, I was just trying to maintain standards. Sometimes difficult decisions. Difficult décision? Marcus' voice rose. Breaking an employee's hand and then blaming her for it is a difficult decision. Cutting a single mother's hours because she reported an injury is maintaining standards. He pulled out a folder and slammed it down on the desk. These are actual incident reports from our other properties, documented with medical care and support for our injured workers. That's how we maintain standards while treating people with basic human dignity. Morrison tried to interject. Mr. Thompson, maybe we can discuss. The only thing we're going to discuss, Marcus cut him off, is your immediate termination. Both of you. Security will be escorting you out in 10 minutes. Stevens's face turned red. You can't do this. I have a contract. This is wrongful termination. Marcus gave a cold smile. Actually, your contract includes a clause about upholding company values and treating employees with respect. You have violated that clause repeatedly. My lawyers will be filing a full report with the Department of Labor about the unsafe working conditions you have created. He hit a button on Stevens's desk phone. Security to the general manager's office, please, and have Patricia Williams sent up here when she arrives for her shift. Stevens stood up, his composure finally gone completely. This is ridiculous. You can't prove anything. It's her word against mine. It's not just her word, Marcus said. I've been here undercover for 2 days. I saw everything, heard everything, and I have a recording of your conversation discussing how to stage more accidents. The security team arrived, 2 professional men in black suits. Marcus nodded. Please escort Mr. Stevens and Mr. Morrison from the building. They no longer work here. As the 2 men were led away, Stevens yelled over his shoulder, This isn't over, Thompson. I'm going to sue you and take everything you have. Marcus watched them go, feeling a weight lift from his chest. But the real work was just beginning. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock on the office door. Patricia Williams stood in the doorway, her bandaged hand carefully tucked against her face a mix of confusion and fear. Sir, you called for me. Did I do something wrong? Marcus gestured for her to sit. Please sit. And no, you didn't do anything wrong. My name is Marcus Thompson. I own this hotel. Patricia's eyes widened, and she started to stand up to apologize. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know if I said anything yesterday. Patricia, Marcus said gently, please sit down. You're not in trouble. In fact, I owe you an apology. She slowly sat down, her good hand gripping the armrest. Sir, yesterday when you were working on the 15th floor, you spoke to a maintenance worker about your injury. That was me. Patricia's face went through a series of emotions. Confusion, recognition, fear, shame. But you said, I was investigating issues in the hotel. I had no idea how serious they were until I spoke with you. Marcus leaned forward. Patricia, I want you to know that David Stevens and Craig Morrison no longer work here. They were fired this morning for the way they treated you and the other employees. Tears began to well up in Patricia's eyes. Sir, I didn't mean to cause trouble. I need this job. You didn't cause trouble, Marcus reassured her. You exposed the trouble that was already here, and your job is safe. More than safe. He opened another folder. I reviewed your employment record. 8 years of outstanding service, positive guest reviews, perfect attendance, with the exception of documented family emergencies. You are exactly the kind of employee this hotel should be proud to have. Patricia wiped her eyes with her good hand. Mr. Stevens said I was a problematic employee, said I was lucky to even have a job. Mr. Stevens was a liar and a bully, Marcus said with finality. He had a system of targeting hardworking employees like you because he enjoyed having power over people who couldn't fight back. He pulled out a check and slid it across the desk. This is back pay for your cut hours, plus compensation for your medical expenses and the pain and suffering you've endured. The hotel's insurance will also cover all medical expenses related to your injury. Patricia looked at the check, her mouth hanging open in shock. Sir, this is too much. I can't. You can, and you will, Marcus said. But that's not all. I'd like to offer you a promotion to the head of housekeeping. You would oversee the entire department with a significant raise and full benefits. Patricia just stared at him, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand. Yesterday, I was afraid I was going to lose my job, and today, justice is being served, Marcus replied. You showed incredible strength and character under impossible circumstances. You kept working. You cared about doing a good job even when you were being treated poorly. That's the kind of person I want leading my housekeeping team. Patricia Williams walked out of that office not as a victim, but as a leader. Her broken hand would heal, but the strength she had shown through her darkest moments would never be forgotten. Marcus Thompson had learned that true leadership wasn't about big offices and profits. It was about protecting the people who made your dreams a reality. Sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is the one who keeps standing up even when the world tries to knock them down. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember that your voice has value.